this debate has to be there. I think in normal circumstances, this debate has to be there, and there should be no reason to shelve it. It should be there from whatever side of the spectrum you are on. Unfortunately, the way we do politics, the way we discuss politics in Lebanon is very unhealthy. It's very toxic, and that explains why people like me and Waël, when we used to talk finance and economics, we used to abstain from talking about politics at some point because of politics per se, but because of the way we do politics. It's so broken in the country. Even the way we discuss politics, it's very toxic. So the debate normally should be there, and it's healthy to have that debate. And I mean, I'm of the opinion that it should be there, but if there is room to have common ground, and October 17 revolution is an opportunity, or was an opportunity for that common ground where people are united over many things. Okay, they might disagree on a couple of things, Hezbollah being one of them, but when there is room for common ground, then we should make the best use of it, rather than knock it down through divisive topics. Having said that, that does not mean that there shouldn't be other spaces to discuss these topics. There should be other spaces to discuss these topics. Right. But when there is a certain space where there's a common ground, it's healthy to keep that space as is intact and have another space to discuss more divisive topics. And that space should be there.
So, Mohamad, could I pick your brain on that? What would the other space be? Is that more regional discussion, more out of Lebanon's orbit, or is it still a protest movement debate? Or not even a debate, let's say a topic. Is it something that is
Yeah. It should be a topic. It should be a discussion. Yes, there is a geopolitical aspect to it. I'm not blind to that geopolitical aspect. But there is also a local aspect discussing, okay, so first of all, in my opinion, it's very important. So arms outside the state are an issue. That's, any reasonable person would accept that. You would never have a normally functioning state as long as you have arms outside the state's control. But so, for example, one of the debates that I would have liked to see more is, okay, discussing more. This is a chicken and egg argument, yeah, and the chicken and egg argument is, okay, do we need to resolve the arms issue first to solve everything else, or is this a parallel process? Or should we shelve the arms issue, solve everything else, and then go back to arms? Because when we talk about building a state, yes, one of the key tenets of a state is monopoly over power or monopoly over arms. But this is only one part of a state, of what a state really is. There is more to having a state than just having a monopoly of power. So you need to tackle all aspects of state building simultaneously, one of them being the monopoly of power. The way I would have liked to see it is discuss the arms issue. It should be discussed, but in a broader context of building the state.
So the state, which is, it seems to be, even though it's discussed on the street, it's not discussed that way. I think people don't look at it, or I'm not going to speak on behalf of people. I think it's the financial pain that overwhelms every other topic. But I like the way you frame it, that this is really about building a state. It's not about...
Because we never had one to begin with.
Right, exactly. It's beyond a cosmetic sort of regime change here and there. This is really building a state. Well, exactly. Could you maybe add to that? Do you see things the same way? And is there room for that kind of conversation in the protest movement? Or is it something that you see perhaps differently?
Yeah, I think Mohamad is more moderate than me on this issue. I have strong feelings about it, and I'll express my feelings.
Let's put the mute on. Wait, no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been called many names lately, so it's okay. It's just more names. So my conviction, which might be wrong, right? Like, people have ideas and are convinced of their ideas, and they might be wrong. But my conviction is that since 2005, the main political divide in Lebanon, put corruption aside because they're all corrupt, they're all in corruption, but the main political divide is Lebanon's role in the region and Hezbollah's weapon. That's been the divisive political divide. Fast forward to today, Hezbollah is in a position where it's a kingmaker and it's the main political, let's say, pole that everyone needs to go back to have a political position. So in that sense, Hezbollah is covering that kind of corruption. I'm not saying that Hezbollah is solely responsible for where we are, but I'm saying it's a big part of where we are. If you look at the economic aspect itself on its own, you can easily say that, oh, crunching the numbers and everything, it was, it was purely corruption. It was purely a central banker who is evil and everything, which is partly true, right? I mean, there's incompetence or there is something going wrong with how everything was handled from an economical point of view, but also you cannot disregard the political aspect of it. I mean, people make economic decisions, as I said, based on the political situation, based on the political climate.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't resolve that, yes, you'll get IMF monies, yes, but how can you deroot corruption, especially when you say killun yani killun, except one thing, then it's not killun yani killun anymore.
But then, can I
in
ask,
that sense.
well, how would you imagine that space without what we saw last weekend? So, I mean, is there a way to frame it? Maybe along the lines of what Mohamad was suggesting, is there a way to kind of incorporate it? Because I see it as, unfortunately, and I agree with more or less what you're both saying, I see it as something that needs to be addressed. There's just no way around it. It cannot be shelved, for years to come. It'll drag Lebanon even further down. So that kind of conversation, without offending, or for that matter, without breaking the protest movement apart, is there maybe, what would the space be if we're all going to be talking about everything, and we don't have to worry whether or not certain political parties butt in or certain groups butt out, that we can all more or less be on the same page?
Where I agree with Mohamad is that you need to look at what's common. You need to look at ropes of communication, of something that would not divide. But from a pragmatic point of view, there are many people who feel that Hezbollah's weapon is the main problem. And if you don't talk about it, that's a divisive issue to them anyways. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be part of anything that doesn't mention Hezbollah's weapon because they see it's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have on the other side many people who think that, no, that's not part of the problem and, let's focus on something else. So how do you bridge that divide? I think it's too wide of a divide that it's hard to bridge. And ideally, you would put it aside, maybe, ideally, I don't know, but is it pragmatic? That's the question.
Mohamad, could you maybe...
I want to jump in back to this, again, this is not about either we shelve it or we keep it as part of the debate. We can keep it as part of the debate. So we should, and I think we should have it as part of the debate within a certain space that maintains that common ground. So again, there should be a space in which people debate Hezbollah's arms. It should be there. The question is, okay, once you afford that space, once that space is there, and once that debate is there, and it has to be a healthy debate for God's sake, because that's something that we don't really enjoy. We don't have healthy debates on any divisive topics.
Mm-hmm.
So, once you have that space in which you have that healthy debate about arms, then, I think you could bridge that gap by having another parallel space where you discuss Hezbollah.
But is that a legislative space where it should be parliamentary debate, or is it a protester space?
It is at the grassroots space.
So I'm really trying to imagine it because I'd like to see that take shape. How does it work? Do you have literally certain groups protesting that issue at certain times and then other groups protesting other issues at different times? Or is it still something that you can kind of hold on to and bring together?
See, in normal circumstances, you would have these protests, and it's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're having people protesting against Hezbollah's arms, big deal. You have people protesting for Hezbollah's arms, okay. you know, and it should be fine. I think what we need more is not just protests versus counter protests, but actually a space in which different people from different viewpoints on this topic discuss it and debate it. Because the thing is that space in which you can discuss this healthily is not really there. We only saw one opportunity. There's only one opportunity that I could think of where this was discussed in a healthy way was in Albert Costagna's show the other day, 2030.
Yes.
Between Sami Al-Jmail and Jad Ghusn. You know, they did discuss that. And, you know, both of them come from fairly different viewpoints on that matter. And yet they managed to have a very healthy debate on this topic, despite them both coming from different viewpoints on that matter. And I think, you know, that space should be wider at a grassroots level where people could sit down and actually discuss it. It should not be a taboo topic. Nothing should be a taboo topic.